This is the 22nd season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. Back in the studio for a week away. Had the Bassmaster Open on Grand Lake. Was planning on doing some live shows during that time, but ended up not having fantastic cell service at the house. And also, we'll get into it a little bit later on. We have some fantastic videos coming down the way. Like kind of after practice, I thought, my God, I might have a shot at this derby. And finished first out of the money. 46th place, 3 ounces shy of a $3,000 check, but got good points, got back up in the EQ standings. Didn't really have a chance to talk about some exciting stuff that went on the previous week. You had Jacob Fouts. We're going to try to get him on this week, winning on the Arkansas River out of Muskogee. Christy made it interesting, looking to go back-to-back. I mean, you had change in river conditions that went down in that one, but Fouts did some really impressive stuff, caught some big fish at key moments. Jacob Wheeler, we had him on last month, and was kind of asking him, it'd been a while since he, I want to say if off the top of my head, 2011, I think, was the year that he won the All-American, and then he also had a cup, but he had not won a Red Crest yet, obviously not a classic, and he pretty dominating fashion gets that first Red Crest win there. That whole house there with Connell and MDJ and Jacob Wheeler getting that win. And then Ricky Morris goes to a very interesting tournament in the NPFL on Millwood and wins that event. You had Hackney up there, you had Matt Herron, you had a bunch of guys you saw flipping and things like that. And then on top of that, the Fishing Chaos tournament ended. The BTL Fishing Chaos tournament for St. Jude ended. So we will be recording later today with Tom Brubaker from Fishing Chaos, and he is going to kind of talk through everything and all the prizes and how that went down. And then I'm headed to the St. Jude in Minnesota, the Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic at the end of this week. Already over $800,000 raised for that tournament for the 100 teams that are in it. You guys showed out. We did $5,100 in Bass Fishing Saves Lives, BTL, and St. Jude t-shirt sales that will go directly to our team for that event. Big shout out to ATS Printing for helping with the cost of the t-shirt and all of that. So thank you guys very much for doing that. Let's talk about this Bassmaster Open that went down on Grand Lake. Wyatt Burkhalter, going into this, I would say it's kind of my home lake. Haven't fished it a lot over the last 3 or 4 years, but fished a ton of tournaments on this pond. He caught 68-11 over 3 days, which was really impressive. And I actually got a chance to get out on the water with him yesterday and fish a tournament with him. So that's going to be coming later this week. I was going to have him on just as an interview, but then he's fishing the Open that's going on this week at Lake Norman. So he was actually like, hey, is there a tournament on Sunday? And I was like, yeah, there's an AIA team series. He's like, you want to fish it? And I was like, how often do you get a chance to get in the boat with someone who was fishing similar to the way you were fishing, but absolutely kicked your ass? So I got up at 1:30 in the morning, took the cameras and the audio, mic'd them up similar to how I did Randy Blockett on the water. You guys seem to really enjoy that. So that'll be coming later this week. All right. One of the cool stories out of Grand, well, I don't want to give it away. We'll see how cool she thinks it is. But one of the cool stories that came out of Grand Lake was on day one. I was like 3 or 4 people in front of her, and she's been to like some of the media events that I've been to. Obviously, probably, well, I'll say like 100% the most prominent female angler in the industry right now, who's making a serious run. I kind of did that in the title. I said, can Kristine Fischer make the Elite Series? And I say that because she's in 55th points in the EQ standings halfway through the season. So very realistic chance to make it. But she had a 20 rack on day one, 20 pounds, 4 ounces to finish in 6th, and then back that up with a solid day 2, ended up finishing 11th. And I was like, okay, I need to get Kristine on the show. Everyone knows who she is, making waves, particularly in the kayak. She's in the opens. Has fished some as a co-angler in the past, and then a couple out of the front of the boat this year. So thank you for jumping on, Kristine. I greatly appreciate it.
Hey, Matt, I'm excited to be here. I've been a long time listener of the show, and it's just kind of cool. This comes full circle, and I get to be a guest for the first time on BTL.
Yeah. That had to be pretty cool. I know, like I watched some of your videos and I follow you on social media, and I feel like, especially when it comes to the front of the boat stuff, you're optimistic, but you're incredibly hard on yourself. Is that a fair assessment?
If there are people out there that are hard on me, I wish you could take that times 1,000 and get inside my head on how hard I am on myself. But that to be said, if you could have seen me when I first started kayak fishing about 12 years ago now, I was even harder on myself to the point that it almost completely burnt me out on tournament fishing. And, I had to learn to take it easy on myself, and, winning's not everything. It was, I am very hard on myself, but I was much more hard on myself when I first started kayak fishing. So,
and
learning.
So when was your first kayak tournament? Like what year? Like, do you remember what year you kind of first?
2015 was my first kayak tournament.
Okay, so you're 11 years in. So you're a complete tournament veteran. And then I know you've jumped in the back of the boat in some of the opens. You're actually fishing next to me when you fished with Trey Swindle the last year that the opens were on Leech Lake, and it was bucket out there by the island, and there were like 3 of us that stayed out there all day, and we all had mega bags, and that was a straight up scope derb. And you were in the back with Trey Swindle. So, I mean, you're familiar with it, but I especially think when you move to the front of the boat, then you catch them. Like, you look at your weights there, you're not, it's not 1-2 fish. Like, you're coming in with limits, and I feel like you're progressing fairly rapidly. What is the difference between the kayak and the boat? Like, is that a learning curve from tournaments 11 years ago to kayaks, and then really the last year and a half from the boat? Just kind of start off on that difference, because I've never been in a kayak. I'm scared to get in a kayak. I feel like snakes can crawl in kayaks, and I hate snakes.
They can. I've actually had one under my seat before at some of the tournaments. So yeah, snakes don't bother me too bad. I got bit by a copperhead when I was 11, and I think after that we have this mutual respect. So it's all good. But no, Matt, you kind of nailed it. I think you guys, I feel like so many people just were popped out of the womb up on the front of a bass boat down south. You come down there, and it's just this community of people that are bass fishing. It's such a culture down there that was not very prevalent. It wasn't prevalent at all in Nebraska where I grew up. And I had never been in the front of the boat until a year and a half ago. It was my very first time. So,
wow.
And I think a lot of people don't understand, or they take for granted the magnitude of never being in the front of the boat and then fishing. I did jump in a women's only tournament for my very first one, but then my next tournament was an open on Clark's Hill. And my nerves were through the roof because the fishing wasn't necessarily that wasn't my biggest concern. My concern was backing, getting my boat in the water and then going to dock it and then getting back on my truck, and then not, I didn't want to hit anybody's boat. I just knew I was going to do something stupid. And my boat positioning, boat positioning, I'm still working on that. And Grand really tested that in that wind, fishing around, maneuvering around the docks. It's learning that, and there's still so many things that I need to improve on in terms of being in the front of the boat. I'm getting better. I'm a night and day difference now than I was a year and a half ago. But I think some people forget, like, this is my first, year and a half in a boat, on the front of the boat. So I'm still learning. I'm trying to be a sponge and just absorb everything and soak it all in. And, but that was kind of my main priority, is being safe, learning all the things, navigating, driving in rough water. There are so many, going through a lock. I had never been through a lock before. That freaked me out. So it's just a lot of things that I think you guys it's second nature to so many of you, that for me, I'm just mentally kind of frazzled about all the time.
Yeah. Ironically, so when I first fished the BFL, so I was a little bit late. So like I had an old Ranger that I got when I was like 13 or 14, but it was like with my daddy, I had to put like a trailering kit on the minivan to get it in the water and stuff. But when I got my first ZX 190 in my 20s, I would go pre-practice or practice for like the BFLs and stuff. But my main thing was going to the ramp, figuring out how it laid out, backing in and out. I had the exact same fear. Like, the fishing was the least part of it. And then the second part was, can I fish an area where I think I can get to and get back of because of the wind? Like I can remember fishing Bass Nations back then where I would just turn around because I was scared of it. So I think that like when you talk about we'll talk a little bit about this, like barriers getting into the industry and stuff. I think that's like a taken for granted, but you get there, everybody's zipping in, everybody's zipping out. There's 200 boats that are all around. How do you beach? Where do you beach? How do you park? You have to back into your spot. There's all these things that aren't covered in the rules that guys who, I've got 60 Bassmaster Open or 50 Bassmaster Opens under my belt now that you just take for granted and stuff. But I think everybody in that first couple years has to go through that. But here's the biggest difference. And I experienced it just a little bit because I was still kind of like an intern with Mark Jeffries at the time. You've got tens of thousands of eyeballs on you while you're learning this. And 99.99% of these guys are doing it in club tournaments and BFLs and smaller stuff where if you hit someone, if you back up, if you do something wrong, like we all did it. I sunk a boat on the Illinois River that wasn't mine when I was trying to put it I sunk a guy's bumblebee when I was 16 years old. It was horrible, but no one knew who I was and I just moved on. Do you feel that pressure of people like watching you now learn all this stuff that everybody got to do behind the scenes?
Absolutely. There are so many parallels with me getting into the kayak space a long time ago and now into the opens. And thankfully, one of the interesting things is, I look back on getting into the kayak stuff and I felt that pressure. I was the only female that was fishing a lot of these big national tournaments. But the cool thing is I feel like I made all of my mistakes and how I handled some of the pressure and some of the comments and some of the receptions and some of the, the tough things. I made a lot of mistakes early on in my younger years of how I let that stuff affect me. Whereas now in the opens, I feel like I've definitely grown. I've been refined in my journey here and I mentally am in a much better place. So I'm still hard on myself. And where I do know, now I say that, I'm not going to lie to you, just right before Grand Lake, I was not mentally in a great place. There were the comments coming in like, you shouldn't have jumped into the opens. You should start with BFLs or, you should do this. Cause I had a rough year my first year in the opens. I finished just inside the top 100 of AOI. Which was my goal, but I think a lot of people didn't think that was good enough or I was getting my butt kicked and I fully expected to get my butt kicked, but I was starting to think, my gosh, like maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I did kind of bite off more than I could chew. And this is just a huge mistake. And that's kind of where my head was at coming into Grand Lake.
One of the things that you do have an advantage of, I would imagine, is the winning mentality. You've been very successful in the kayak tournaments. You've won some major kayak tournaments. So do you think that your learning curve is less than a lot of people who decide to jump in the opens and do that because on the kayak side, you have had you've put your hands on the hardware, you've got the big cardboard checks, you've put together winning tournament patterns throughout the day. Do you think that while you have a bigger learning curve on the logistics side, the finding the fish, competing, putting together a bag, catching clutch fish when you needed to is much smaller?
I would normally say yes, but then I also think, and you can probably speak to this better than I can, but I look at our field of opens anglers, and I feel like a lot of these guys started doing these major tournaments in high school and then college. And they also have that, they're fishing with hundreds of boats. And so I kind of feel like most people in the opens almost have that type of experience. In terms of winning though, and just knowing what that comes down to. Yeah, I attribute so much of that to my kayak fishing journey and my career there, because I've caught a lot of big bags in the kayak, and I've had some absolutely amazing accomplishments there. And that's helped me tremendously. But I think I had this mental block from going into the kayak, because while I don't want to discredit kayak fishing, we have some incredible anglers. We have some opens anglers and some ex elite series anglers actually that are fishing our kayak stuff. And there's some incredible anglers there. The opens are just, they're on, I think they're the toughest competition out there, especially now. I think the opens right now are about as tough as it gets. And I think that I put that's pretty intimidating, so sometimes I forget what I've done over there, and I look at what I'm coming into here, and it just feels this huge daunting deal competing against you all the time,
Oh, there's no daunting against competing against me. But so I know you've probably reached this topic a number of times, but I would love to know kind of the nitty gritty on the difference between, hey, if I want to run to the dam on Grand Lake in calm conditions, I can be there in 20 minutes. And then if I want to spend 45 minutes of my day, I can be up the Elk River 45 minutes later, versus I have to put in at a public launch ramp. And are you sponsored by Torpedo or whatever the mode of transportation of choice is for the kayak? But I'm just saying, you're not going to be fishing the dam in the Elk River in the same day in a kayak derb, whereas you have 60,000 acres of fishable water. Has that been a big adjustment?
Honestly, not really, because I was pretty notorious for launching multiple times in kayak tournaments. Okay. Like Eufaula, for example, I started my day down by the dam, and then I ran up to the very north part. What is that called up there? There's that. Oh my gosh, it's been years since I fished Eufaula, but where it kind of winds
Alabama
back and
or
forth,
Oklahoma?
way north of Alabama.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know any of the names
there's
on
a
Alabama.
Name there's a name for it, but it's an hour drive to get up there. Okay. So I started my day down at the dam, and I would drive up and end my day up there, flipping and punching when the sun got up. So I don't, now it takes me considerably longer to do that in the kayak. But with the, that hasn't really been that much of an adjustment for me, honestly.
Okay, because I was wondering if that you would have a tendency to run more, or have more of a tendency to kind of hunker down in one area. But that for Clark's Hill, that was kind of a big deal. I was used to putting in at whatever ramp I wanted to. So knowing nothing about Clark's Hill, I'm kind of a river rat. So I put in about as far north as you could get. Never put in where we took off down at the dam. And didn't realize that was like a 50-mile run. And it was also about 50 miles away from where apparently all of the fish in the lake were. So, a lot of tough learning. I got a 6'9" false clue cranking up there in practice. So I was all excited. That was not a good deal. But yeah, that was and I was late. That was the tournament I was late coming back for. So I lost like 4 or 5 pounds in my first open. Yeah, tough learning deal there. But aside from that, no. All right, let's get to Grand Lake. So you come into Grand Lake, stable conditions, 200 plus boat tournaments leading in the week before, 742 winter pool water. Practice starts, first day of practice on Sunday. There's a 250 boat tournament out. Mud's coming down the river. Lake gets up to 746.60. It's in the bushes. Half of the lake is muddy, half the lake is clear. You've got pre-spawners, you've got spawners, you've got post-spawners, you've got a shad spawn going on, and you know that you've got 30-mile-an-hour winds coming in for the tournament with 500 boats on the water the entire practice. and no live scope. This was a fishing derby, wasn't it, Kristine?
I was so happy to see it. This is my first no scope event, and I nothing against live scope. I really don't, but I knew that live scope is kind of my Achilles heel. I'm decent at it, but I'm not Open's decent at it. So I was really excited to get to one of these events where I didn't have to second guess, with the rest of them, like Rayburn, I was up shallow, or I was going out scoping, but my mind was always on that, on something else. This one, I didn't have to worry about that. And I was really excited. I didn't get on the water until Monday at 2:00. So I had a kayak tournament in Texas that wrapped up on Sunday. So I got in late Sunday night, not in a great mental space. So I kind of decided that I was going to take Monday morning and I got in my Bible. I read the entire book of Nehemiah, and I just kind of said, Lord, if you want me here in this space, you're going to have to show up, because I'm at that point where I'm losing faith in myself. And I'm always the last one to lose faith in myself, despite what tons of people can say, despite all the comments that I'm never going to, do this. I was starting to kind of lose that faith. But when I got out on the water about 2:00, I had noticed it'd come down just a tiny bit. So I knew that we were going to have falling water, and that kind of affected how I set up my practice. And Matt, I got out there, Grand was setting up exactly in my wheelhouse, and that got me kind of excited. So it seemed like everywhere that I went, I found a section. I caught a couple good fish on a frog, but I knew that wasn't going to hold up because of where they were. But I did have a couple sections of bushes that were in, I thought that like 3.5 to 4.5 foot. If there were bushes still in that depth, it'd probably still play. And I did find 1 or 2 stretches of that. But it's like I would pull up on a bank and I'd catch a 4.5 pounder. And then I'd go to the next spot. And it's like I could just drive around that lake, just kind of cruise. And my plan was to stay pretty close to the ramp. I went up the Elk River. There was not one spot I went to where I got 2 really good bites in a row, but I'd catch a good fish here. I'd go to the next stretch and, I'd look for those transition banks or any of those kind of steeper banks in the back thirds of these pockets. I caught 2 of my bigger fish. I caught like a 410 and and spit. And there was 0 clairs, straight mud, on a just slower on a big spinner bait. Stuff I love to do, skipping a swim jig up in the bushes, fishing a big swim bait, several different spinner baits. It was just setting up. And it's like I had 18 pounds from 2:00 Monday till I got off the water at about 6:30. And I was like, dang. And it's like everywhere I went, I caught them. It was unreal, and I knew the water would be falling. So on Tuesday, I practiced specifically. I figured it would fall maybe a foot by tournament day. It's kind of what I was surmising, I guess. And so Tuesday I got out early, hoping to find a little bit of a shad spawn. I did not find that, but about 9:50 that day, I went to a stretch and I caught a 5.5 pounder on a swim bait. And the next spot I went to, I caught a 5.1. Next spot I went to was a 4.5, and these are totally different spots.
You had a sack.
All within. I had 19 pounds, I think, on Tuesday, and I got off the water at 4:00, and I just, that was a pretty tough feeling because I had never had a practice. The upper Chesapeake and the Tom Bigby, I had pretty good practices, but not like this.
Yeah.
This just felt different. And I finally felt like I definitely had a pattern. I knew that. It had several patterns. I could literally get in my boat and drive around the lake. And I knew just by looking at the bank and my map, I knew where I was going to get bit. And every time I went there, I would, and I catch one fish and leave, go to the next spot, catch a fish and leave. And what was weird is I did a lot of flipping too. I figured there'd be a great flipping bite, and I'm sure that there was on Friday. And that's one thing, a huge mistake I made. But my flipping bites were all small. They were keepers, but they were 2 pounders, 2.5 pounders. All my flipping bites in practice. My big bites all came on steeper banks, kind of transition banks, deeper bushes, riprap. And all those fish, it was insane. It was just a phenomenal practice for me.
So you had to be pretty jacked going into Thursday morning because we have the off day And then Thursday, it's just gas and wind. So I would also imagine then a year and a half in the front of the boat. You've already said you're not, one of the things that bugs you is running in rough water. And Hank was like, we're going, like 100% we're going. And like, you could hear it in the trees. Like everyone's out there going, oh, it's going to be sporty today. Like, was that in the back of your head where you're like, oh, great, I'm on the fish now and I got to deal with this? Or had you kind of planned on that and knew your fishing areas that you could get to and back without having to really get out in the nasty stuff?
So that I kind of planned for that. And two things, I intentionally stayed pretty close. I mean, within 12 miles of the ramp. Mm-hmm. And one of my areas, that area I caught my biggest fish in practice, the direction of the wind, I had a feeling was going to be a pretty magical deal. And it ended up being a really, really good deal because of the wind funneling in. There was just, it's set up to where if I'm not a spot soaker, I should have been in this tournament. I should have stayed there. But every time I came back to that same area 3 times, and every single time I cold.
So did you just like, okay, so it was an all day thing, or did you just like roll up and were like, oh my God, I'm going to be in the top 10?
No, I definitely did not. And I didn't weigh any amount. I did not weigh a single fish. I was so
you don't
nervous.
Bubba scale those things?
I did on day 2. On day 1, though, that's one of the things I need to get better at as a boater. I had my fish coming in, and I knew like my best 4 were all over 4 pounds. So I was like, I don't need to even, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to cull these. So I put them all in the box, and then I had one small fish, and I lost about a 5-pounder at the boat, and I had 2 upper 3. One might've been a 4-pounder on back-to-back casts that I jumped off. And so in my mind, I'm like, I had that small fish in my bag. I thought I had maybe 16, 17 pounds. I didn't have any idea. I really didn't.
Do you have the Bubba scale system where you have the cull tags and the things where it shows you the 5 fish and then it culls your smallest one out automatically and all that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And I used that. That came in handy big time.
I was a late adopter to that. This is my first year with it. And I was like, my God, I was using a whiteboard and a dry erase marker 2 years ago. And then I got this and I'm like, this is like life changing. I saw you in the weigh-in line. That was when we were kind of early flight on that first day, but it was, guys were like looking at your bag and stuff, and we're like, oh my God, like I've never seen, like, it was really cool. So my wife actually watched the weigh-in, and she texted me after, and she's like, I know that you only get people on BTL based on the merit of their accomplishments and nothing else. And she's like, you now have to get Kristine Fischer on the show. She's like, that was the coolest thing. She was watching on the phone. She was there on day 2. She's like, that was the coolest thing to see when the scales hit 20, your reaction on the stage.
So she actually, it was the sweetest thing, Matt. On day 2, she, I was pretty bummed on day 2, getting off the scales there. I just knew I wasn't going to have enough, but she had come up to me and told me that same thing. And it made me tear up just seeing how I knew she was really proud of me, and that just, her reaction and seeing how supportive she was the coolest thing. I mean, that really stuck with me. And I went back and watched my weigh-in, and I am somebody that I'm pretty animated, and I just I try so hard to censor myself. And it's like, my goodness, you guys catch so many 20-pound bags in the opens, and it's like no big deal. So I was a little embarrassed that I lost my cool.
No, screw it. Enjoy it. You're there to do it. You put in the time, you put in the effort. It's an individual experience for everybody. And as long as it's genuine and authentic, screw everyone else.
Oh, I mean, it was definitely, I was bawling. I mean, I cried more after that weigh-in. It was Brandon Polinick sent me this video. I mean, I thought I was done crying, and then he texted me this video about an underdog to watch. And it was a 2-minute video, and I was shaking. I was crying so hard. I mean, it was just I wish I could bottle that up and just relive that moment over and over and over again, because that's what is going to continue to keep me here. Even when the next few tournaments could be just brutal, I'm going to have to go back and revisit that and just keep pushing and keep pushing.
Yeah. I know you said was it Jeremiah, the book that you said, was it New King James or NIV?
Nehemiah. It was, so I read the book of Nehemiah.
In Old King James?
Yeah. Yep.
I was just going to say, so Not to get a religion, but I believe in the fishing gods. And I think that they're fishing gods, that they will beat you down. And right at the moment where you say, I'm done, I gave it a shot, this is it, they will say, oh, Kristine's about to give up, or Matt's about to let's throw him a bone. And then you have that magical day and it all makes sense. Everything you've done over the past year and a half, everything you've gone through, and you have that one moment where it all comes together, and now you're sucked right back in for another year. And then it's just a vicious cycle of grind. And then you have that one moment, and then it all makes sense. And you're the only one it makes sense to. And the people just see you up on stage, or they see a picture of you catching a fish. But it's bizarre to me how such an abstract sport activity, whatever you want to call this, can at particular key moments give you a gift at the exact moment when you need it, when you think all it does is just beat you down. I think that's one of the magical things about fishing in general.
Yeah, I could not have said it any better than you just did. And that's exactly what happened. Because I was at that point where I was like, you know what? Maybe this is too much for me. People were starting to talk. Like, I think a lot of people were starting to lose faith in me. People that thought I was going to just come out and do well. And from the get-go, I was trying to tamper people's expectations for me. I was like, please, y'all, be patient with me. It's a big step. Please be patient. I have zero ego in this. I mean, I think looking back at a lot of people that have done this before, I've never come out and said, I'm going to be the first female to do this or do that. I've never said that. I will never say that. And I don't even know if that's my goal. I just felt like I needed to be here fishing this so that maybe if I had a breakthrough or something big happened, there'd be a high school gal or like a 10-year-old girl that would see that. And maybe she would get this fire that she'd fish in high school, fish in college, and she'd be the one. It's never needed to be me. Like, I really, truly do not have any, and maybe I should, people are like, oh, you need to think bigger, have bigger goals. But I don't know. My goals have just kind of shifted in the last 5 years, and it's not so much oriented around myself. I want to be here so that maybe somebody can see it and be inspired by it and then do what it takes. I just want to see this happen in my lifetime, where we have this gal that makes the classic through the Open. It's never been done, or qualifies for the elites. That would be, you want to talk about crying. Oh my gosh, if that happens, I will be front row at that Bassmaster Classic bawling my eyes out. It's just, that's kind of why I'm here, I feel like. And it may not be, I don't need to be the one that does it. I really don't.
You've mentioned it a couple of times. You've talked about the comments. You've talked about the feedback. I was going to take a break. Wasn't even planning on touching this. I want to dive into it though. So this is just, I wasn't planning on it. So off the top of my head, obviously Chris Houston, when you go back into it, Jimmy Houston's wife, pioneer in the sport. You can go back to the Bass and Gal days. Then they had the Bassmaster Women's Tour. Kim Bain, first woman in the Bassmaster. Yeah, Kim Bain Moore, first woman in the Bassmaster Classic on that. That lasted a couple years. Pam Martin Wells, who recently just passed away, being inducted into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame this fall. But, and we talk about this behind the scenes, not in a bad way, but I talk about it with my buddies. We say we almost not feel bad for, but almost sympathize with the Bassmaster anglers, because you have the boats, you have the trucks, you have the publicity. You're on Bassmaster Live at the Bassmaster Classic. You're in the Bassmaster Opens. They're giving you the keys to what every angler who's in the Opens wants. And there's a lot of eyeballs on you. And I saw Anastasia on the water. She's always had a really positive attitude. Maggie does a great job. You do it. But I feel like that Bassmaster push puts a lot of pressure on you guys with the publicity the Bassmaster gives you, and with what you do. Am I off base on that? Is that hard to juggle, because you're talking about catching an inanimate object that doesn't know what color you are, what race, gender, anything, but above the water, we could all see that. That has to be a lot of pressure.
It definitely is, but honestly, more so, and I have fought this for the entirety of my career. I think I have a different take on this than a lot of women do. Because how I look at it, I mentor a lot of girls, and I've always tried to tell the other girls on the Bassmaster program that we should not act as if we are entitled to anything. When you talk about, the opportunity that we have, the last thing I want to hear from the gals is that we are victims in this. It's just too hard and there's too many obstacles, because a lot of my friends and a lot of my peers, you guys, work so hard and have been, financially strained for years and years. And that's how I started in the kayak stuff. I did the whole sleeping at the boat ramp and was broke forever and ever and ever. And it seems like, the biggest thing for me is like, we get almost, I don't want to say thrown these opportunities, but it kind of feels like that a little bit. And I just want to make sure that we are working very, very hard to do what we need to do to earn opportunities and to represent and to have the right attitude around this, if that makes sense. And that's what I put the most pressure on myself about, because there are 10,000 guys that are working just as hard, if not harder, for these things. That's what I'm thinking of. And that's why I try to coach the girls coming up to not ever take that for granted or feel like we are owed this, or does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Or
it does.
Just talk about how difficult this is. Cause it's like, you're going to tell us that, and women do have a different set of obstacles than men do, but at the same time, look at the obstacles it's so much harder for guys to get noticed than it is for women, because there's so fewer of us. And I feel like the standard is just lower for us because there are fewer of us, right? And that's really hard for me, because my expectations of a program like that are probably unrealistically high, if that makes sense.
What are your expectations for that program?
Well, I look at it as if, we have these opportunities in the boats and the trucks. I want us to be using that. And, but at the same time, I don't think there are a lot of women that probably are ready to jump into that level of competition. So I think at the very least, I want the gals to be using that and our opportunities. And I think we're, for the most part, doing a pretty good job, but just using it, getting out there, doing what we're supposed to do and trying to inspire more women to getting into this, and it's hard. It's women's fishing has always been a very difficult deal.
Yeah. Are you surprised at the number of young girls who follow you, who look up to you, who want to be with you, since you've kind of been, I guess you're literally an ambassador for the Bassmaster program, behind the scenes? How often do you get approached by, kids, high school age girls who are like, hey, you're my role model, I want to get into this, and actually look at this as a viable opportunity now that they didn't exist a year and a half, 2 years ago before this program?
That happens all the time, and it just continues to blow me away. And I get the opportunity. I do a lot of mentorship for high school and college anglers. So I've got several that I, talk to and kind of work with and try to coach. And that's been the most rewarding part of my last several years. And not just that, I get a lot of dads that reach out to me and moms and send me these letters and emails about how their girls wanted to quit because, one of them in particular was like, these two girls were doing really well in high school, but they didn't want to fish in college because all the boys were accusing their dad of catching their fish for them. And, just some of the stuff that's tough that we got to deal with. And they saw me continuing to go through this and fish this. So they decided to fish in college. So stuff like that just shows me, regardless, if I continue to get my butt kicked in these opens, it's doing something. And I think for me, I feel like that is what has truly moved the needle, whereas we're kind of in this influencer era where there's a lot of fishing influencers and they're getting a ton of reach. And I think that, I try to look at that and say, what moves the needle most? I know what moves it for me. For me, like seeing Trey fish the opens was huge. Just seeing her fish them was big for me.
Yep.
But I look at it and I'm constantly trying to reevaluate, what is going to truly move the needle? Is it in all reality, there are not a lot of women that are probably ever going to fish at this level. I really, we're not going to ever have 50 or 60 women fishing the opens. I don't think that that's going to happen. So the way I look at it is like, what truly moves the needle? Or does it take a variety of different roles? You have like the more the influencer type people, or you have the gals that are out there fishing tournaments, trying to get up there and cut checks and, do this thing. What truly moves the needle? I think about that all the time, in terms of what we need to be doing and what does that look like, about getting more people into the sport.
I've been on,
and I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I've been on the bilge a couple times and I always go back and forth with trade on it. I don't think she ever gets enough credit for, although very opinionated, that I disagree with on some of the things on that, but she has done a lot of things behind the scenes in the industry with I've got her original trait pink fishing rod over there too. There's a lot of stuff that she did to help a lot of kids and a lot of stuff behind the scenes on it. Also want to mention Hillary Martin also is an amazing angler, does a lot of stuff and has a big reach there and makes it look cool as hell too while she's doing it. But why do you think I get this on BTL a little bit, but I avoid it 98% for my own mental sanity. Every once in a while I'll dip into it when I get a little bored. Why do you think people who won't ever fish against you, their life has no impact on what you do or what you're doing? Why do you think they watch every minute and then feel the need to let you know that you're wasting your time and you shouldn't do it? Like where do you think the genesis of the negative comments comes from? And this is more of like a human question, not just a female in a male dominated sport question, but I would love to know your thoughts on that because it kind of baffles me when I get a little bit of a taste of it.
Yeah, it's pretty philosophical if you think about it, if you break it down. And if you think about the origin of negative comments, and let's go even deeper than just fishing, if you think about it just in general in life, I truly believe, we're broken. Humans are a broken society, right? We are just hardwired to be filled with envy and negativity and hate and anger. That's just it's a pretty prevalent theme. And I think it's very easy to fall into that. And that's the thing, it's easy. And a lot of people take that easy route when they look at somebody that's doing something or having success. I like to tell people when someone makes a negative comment on any of our fishing things, I guarantee that same person at their job, if they got passed up for a promotion, would say the exact same thing. Have that same, it's an outlook and it's a perspective thing. I don't think that they're just negative in one aspect of their lives on the keyboard when it comes to fishing. I think in general, and that taught me the most, because like I said, my first few years in kayak fishing, I have dealt with some absolutely heinous things. Things that I didn't think I would ever survive. They were so bad and just so
from like individuals.
And yeah, really? I'll just give you one example. Just one example.
So have at it.
Yeah, I'll give you one. There's been a lot, but I'll give you just one. There was a kayak, this was years ago, but there was somebody that I didn't even know reached out to me and said, "Hey, I think you should know what was just said about you at this table full of it was after a big kayak tournament. A lot of people went out to eat together in these big groups. So this guy was sitting there basically saying that he saw you with his own eyes leaving the tents of 3 guys on the kayak fishing, like that kayak fish. One of them, Drew Gregory, who's married, 2 of my good friends, and told this whole group of people that I was that I was going to see these guys in the middle of the night to get info and spots. Yeah. And right off the bat, I was like, well, none of those guys even camp. So that's hilarious. But I just sat there and I was like, so this is 15 people that don't know me. And this person said that he saw me with his own eyes. which, I mean, that's pretty hard not to believe something like that. So that was a direct, I mean, just major attack to my character. But come to find out, so I go to this guy, I was like, I remember that guy that's claiming to say this stuff. So I go to my DMs, and way back when, this guy had nonstop hit me up, wanted to go out to dinner, wanted just to talk to me. And I hadn't responded. And so out of anger for me just rejecting him, he concocted just this insane story about me. And that has happened. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how much stuff has been said, and even by some friends. And honestly, some of the worst I've got from other women, other competitive women in this space over the years. And that's been heartbreaking for me. But what I learned, it used to make me really angry. It used to get me very defensive. But thank goodness that what I learned is that when people do that, it's almost always something to do with them, the insecurity or that's a heart posture that person is dealing with. And it almost makes me now almost kind of just has empathy for them. If you really think about it, if you think about getting in a mind of that person that feels like they need to just tear somebody down because of whatever reason, doesn't it make you kind of just hurt for them? Because think about what they must deal with in their own minds every single day. So, but back then I'd get angry, I'd get defensive. It would just destroy me hearing some of this, especially from people I thought were friends, But the truth of the matter is, and Kevin Van Dam actually told me this over a bottle of wine last year. He said, it's lonely at the top. It was the coolest thing. Like, Kev, we sat down, had a bottle of wine, then an espresso martini. That was his call, by the way. I'm going to put that out there.
I thought he was a Bud Light Lime guy.
Oh yeah, that's what you would think. That's what he wants you to think. But I might have just outed him. He's an espresso martini all the way. He literally told me that 95% of the people, which I think this might be a little exaggerated, but 95% of them are not probably the greatest and don't have your best interest in mind. And it's very lonely at the top. And the more success you have and the better that you do, it's going to bring out the worst in a lot of people. But the way I look at that, it really truly does have something to do with them, and that just makes me sad for them.
All right, let's flip this. So the positive side is you post, Bassmaster posts, you post after that day one, you're in the top 6, you're over 10,000 likes, hundreds of shares, literally 1,000 comments. Did you have any idea? And that's after a solid day in the top 5. Did you have any idea how many people you actually genuinely have rooting for you as well? Because there's a difference between you're 10 years into the kayak thing, you've won before. Congrats, it's another grade. It adds to the legacy. Hope you know where to put the trophy. But when you went through and I went through those comments, they're 99.9. They're 100% positive. Did you know in your head how many people that you'd never talked to, met, had any interaction with, were pulling for you when you started sifting through all of that after Thursday on Grand?
It continues to blow me away. Because like you said, sometimes we tend to focus on the haters, but that is one thing I've noticed and I think that's a testament to doing things right, or trying my best to represent right, because Lord knows that it has not always been done right in terms of women's fishing. There's a reason people have almost a preconceived notion of, oh, she's doing well because of X, Y, and Z. And I always saw that. I knew it. I heard rumors, and I said, I am going to do my best to represent, even if it takes me longer to be better, I'm going to go the slow, dedicated, right way and do this the best that I can. Morally, everything across the board. And I feel like in doing that, my goal was just to earn people's respect, especially people that I respected and admired. And just seeing the comments, a lot of the Elite Series guys, MLF guys, sent me really, really awesome messages, and they have, since the kayak days. And knowing that, I have that respect, that is the thing that I cherish more than anything. And being able to see all those support and the positivity, I truly don't even, the hateful comments, the few that are even there, man, they don't even faze me anymore. They really don't.
Day 2, disappointing, had some adversity that you had to face, but also had to be proud to come in with the 14 pounds that you had. And I mean, you're on the verge of the highest finish in Open's history for women. You got $7,000 in your pocket and moved on down the road, but I'm sure you'd have liked to have been out there on Saturday.
Oh man, that I'm still wrestling with that. It sounds crazy for me. You know, my best finish prior to this was like 78th or 80th or something like that. Pretty bad, right?
No, I mean, that's a good, out of 200 boats,
just,
listen, out of 200, 220 boats, 200, I don't think people understand how solid a top 50, 60, 70th place finish is. You're beating 65% of the field. In a 50 boat tournament, that's a 20th place finish.
Yeah, you're right. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that. It's just, I've never wanted something so bad. And I finally got that taste. And, you know, that adversity that I faced, it was my, I don't want to say it was my fault. So I found out that a fuse had blown on my charger last night. So my batteries didn't charge. So when everything died at around noon, I did lose some fishing time. And I don't post that because it happens to all of us. We all deal with I'm not going to post about the lost bites. I did lose some big fish that day too, but none of that stuff matters because at the end of the day, all of us have to deal with the equipment issues or, you know, X, Y, and Z. And I just knew that I truly believe that when it's your time, it's just your time and you can't do anything about that. So, you know, that was tough. And I just kind of knew driving in, and you know, I met you at the jetty there right before the weigh-in, and you're like, "Oh, you should still be top 10." And I had this weird feeling. No, you shouldn't have. Because I already knew. I knew that in my mind, I said I need 15 and a half pounds, 15 pounds to do this, and I had 14.5. So I knew I had this weird feeling I was going to be one spot out. But when I think about that, I didn't want to just come in and get a top 10 in my first big breakthrough. You know, that would have been almost, I don't think that would have been as appreciated. I think I need to work a little bit more for it, you know, and I got a taste now, and it might be a little while before I get another chance at it. But I tell you what, now more than ever, I know that I'll have another opportunity. It might be a couple years down the road, but I just needed to believe in myself that I could do it. And I do. So I'll be patient. I'm gonna keep grinding away. I love these no scope events. They definitely make me feel like I have a little better chance at getting out there with some of these guys. But
all right, this is the question. You're 57th in the EQs right now. You're halfway through the year. There's 187 guys that are fishing all this. You are literally right there with 2 decent events. You're in the EQs, 120 guys. Basically, the top 10% go to the Elite Series. This is what everyone wants to know. Is your goal of fishing these to be the first woman to qualify for the Elite Series, to be the first woman to qualify for the EQs? Is this what the grind is all about? Is this what you're here for?
I feel like I should answer yes, but I'm going to be totally honest. No, my goal, I think my goal is just one, I want to make everybody proud. I want to do my best. I want to treat people with kindness on the water. I want to show and reflect my character and try to make a positive impact on our sport, first and foremost. Number 2, selfish goal. I want to qualify for the Bassmaster Classic. I want to win one of these. That is a goal. I'm not really focused on being the first female to do anything. I'm going to be honest. I probably should be, but I'm not. That's not a goal of mine. Would I love to make the EQ? Yeah, that's a goal. I hope I can do that one of these days. But I think making the Classic, I don't know a single competitive bass fishing angler out there that doesn't have that goal or get goosebumps even thinking about fishing the Bassmaster Classic. I want to win one of these so bad and just be in that arena. And I want to do it when my grandpa's still alive so he can come because he's my biggest fan. So that's my goal. Think about the Elite Series. Holy smokes. That's honestly, I haven't even thought that far ahead.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's an entirely, I mean, I'm not only a gal, but I'm freaking 38 years old. I feel like I'm kind of old, to be making the
Easy.
Elite
I'm
Series.
41. Easy.
I know, but don't even think about the travel and I want to have a family one day too. So I'm like, goodness, is that something I don't know if I'm meant to do that or not, but if that comes and I get blessed in that way, we'll figure that out when I get there. But for now, it's just continuing to represent in a way that I can make myself and everybody proud. And I want to qualify for the Bassmaster Classic.
I mean, you gotta be kind of pumped to be in the mix though halfway through. Like you gotta be looking. You gotta be like, there's gotta be a little bit that's like, yeah, let's try to get up there. That top.
What do you think? Because I know that there's people fishing both. What do you think? And they take the top 50, but with the roll downs.
So I have to ask Hank this. I know that they're doing the top 35 from everybody, and I've kind of looked at the list now, but I'm not sure how they're doing it out of Division 1 or Division 2. Like, let's say they qualified in the top 50 in both Division 1 and Division 2.
There's got to be roll downs then, right?
Yeah, there's 100% roll downs, but I mean, I would think that if there's 15 guys, 55 to 60, I mean, the easiest way, there's always that classic bubble guy who's like, going to be like, oh, you should have caught it better, then you wouldn't have to worry about so-and-so when in the open to get into the classic. But I mean, 55, there's a lot of fishing left too. The other thing that I don't think people realize is you're looking at it in the season and you're halfway through, but it's 4 damn days of fishing. It's 4 days. I almost fumbled the bag on day 1. I had 7 pounds with an hour left. And I was like, I had a day that absolutely got away from me. And at least I was smart enough to figure it out and catch 3 big ones in the last hour and catch 14 pounds. But I look at Austin, who's one of my good buddies here and on the Elite Series. They're like, well, Austin's not catching him on the Elite Series. He top 10 this, but he's had 2 bad days and he's only fished 6 days on it. It's crazy how one bad decision that leads to another bad decision. And now you're basically done. I don't think a lot of people understand that.
No, you're so right about that. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it can happen. I feel like, looking at some of the guys that were on that bubble, it's like one bad day changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, so we'll see. I have 2 events left. I'm only fishing 1 division. We got Kentucky Lake and then lacrosse, which I'm stoked about lacrosse. Yeah. That's going to be, I feel like that's an equalizer, but also I feel like ounces there are huge. There's going to be a giant separation to make. I feel like 1 or 2 ounces just makes a huge difference in your, if I'm not mistaken there. So we'll see. If I make the EQ, that's awesome. I mean, that would be incredible. Let's go. Be sweet.
Fishing wise, give me from the front of the boat now, where you're obviously good in the kayak world. From the front of the boat, give me 2 things that you feel like you're really strong at and 1 thing that you feel like you really need to work on.
One thing in the front of the boat that I feel like I'm very good at is visual. My mechanics in terms of casting and seeing visual targets. I'm very confident in covering water, power fishing from the front of the boat. I also feel like I'm okay at front of the boat. Let's see. Finding fish. I always manage to find fish. That's something that's
the biggest thing.
It really is.
You can't catch what's not there.
No, for sure.
I've tried.
That is the biggest thing. And I try to tell people, I've got some gals that have done well as a co-angler and they're like, man, we did really well as a co-angler. I think we're ready to do this. I'm like, you do well as a co-angler because your boater probably puts you on fish or is around fish. Not to take away from successful co-anglers. There's definitely an art to it. But I had a lot of success as a co too. And I attribute a lot of that to having boaters that were just in a good area. And that's where I think being in a kayak, getting out there and teaching myself how to fish, being very solo and independent there. I think, and another thing that brings up, what's really intimidating. And I learned this in my first open. And I didn't know how this worked, but I was in the weigh-in and a guy that I was beating on day 1 by a couple pounds. I noticed a guy come up to him and said, hey, that made a difference, didn't it? And the guy's like, yeah, it was huge. Essentially, there's a lot of these, and even at Grand, a guy's like, yeah, me and my 3 buddies broke down the lake together. And I feel like there's a lot of groups, and maybe you can speak to this better than me, but I almost felt like, oh my gosh, everybody's kind of working together to get this info. And break down the lake together. And I'm, I do travel with Annie, but we fish so different that I feel like I'm kind of 100% lone wolfing it out there. And all of my strategy and my plan, I don't get to really soundboard with anybody. So it kind of is intimidating because I feel like, but maybe it's a good thing too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's just some guys are different. Like Rojas, when I was just covering the Elite Series, he like would refuse to even say hi to anybody because he didn't want someone completely legally in the tournament or someone at the boat ramp to give dock talk. And then when he was struggling, if some guy was like mentioned the back third of a pocket, then that was in his head. And then when he was struggling, he made a decision that was in his head. It then tainted his pure instinct decision making that got him to where he was at it. And then he made a decision based on something that he heard. So he would like cocoon himself away from everyone else. So every decision that he made was his pure. But on the flip side, when I had 4 for 7 and it was 12:30 and I'm running down lake, I roll up to a point. Cranford's 50 yards away. He waves me over because he knows I'm trying to make the EQs. And he's like, you got him? And I said, no. I said, I am in the middle of a spin out. And he's like, what do you got? I said, I got 4 for 7. And he's like, how? He's like, I've been culling 4-pounders. And I said, are they on the rocks doing it? And he said, yeah, get your ass over there. And so that clicked, like I talked to him there. So then I run over to the spot. And of course, Rick Harris is sitting on it. And I'm like, damn. And I know Rick. And I'm like, did it go down early? And he's like, yeah. And I said, have you hit that stuff? And he's like, not yet. And I said, okay, cool. So right there, that's just kind of working with guys and getting it and back in. And I caught now is my decision making to do all that. But yeah, I mean, I was working, talk to other guys and stuff like that and bounce ideas off of other guys. So like when I'm fishing good, there's a picture of you on day 2. And I'm very curious about this. When I'm fishing good, any decision that enters my brain, I don't question it and I just do it. And the way I have figured is if you don't listen to your initial instinct gut decision, now you're always second guessing. If you go into the day and the only thing you're going to do is if it enters your mind, regardless of what it is or how crazy it seems, and you do it, you will never second guess yourself because you will always be following what goes into your head and then your day unfolds even if it's not as planned. Otherwise, you're always fighting yourself. Should I do that? Should I do this? If you just listen to it. So one of the things before I went to Mexico, Zaldane gave me a big bag of his Zaldangerous swim baits. And I kept thinking they're shad up shallow. I need to tie on one of these things in the bone color and slow roll it around these rocks. And there's no way that they're not going to eat it. But then I thought, oh, the water's too muddy. It needs to be a little bit more thump. I'm not going to be able to catch. And I never tied one on. And then I look at the gallery and I'm going to pull this picture up and I see you who finished 11th, and right there, looks like a big boot tail swim bait. Did you get bit on that?
I caught most of my fish. The 2 main baits that I was very confident and locked in on was that 6-inch belly weighted swim bait and 1-ounce spinner bait.
Dang, I should have tied it on.
Yeah, and I have a tremendous amount of confidence in that. Yeah, no, tremendous amount of confidence, especially when the water's dropping. That's just one of those things that I wasn't catching a ton of fish, but was I getting the right ones every time. And I just got a lot of confidence in it. You can fish it, a lot of people were throwing spinner baits. And I felt like that was just something that even in water that had, 1.5 to 2 foot visibility, I'm very confident in that bait. And yeah, I got most of my fish on it. And I'll post the whole YouTube, video and recap and show you guys what I was doing. It was a special bite. So
that's a big fish right there. Yeah, that was on that swim bait.
Was that
swim bait?
Yeah, that was it was my biggest fish on the on day 2. Unfortunately, I was happy about that. The camera boat just pulled up.
All right. I could have gone a million different ways with this interview. I wasn't sure what we went down a couple different rabbit holes. Anything you have a burning desire to talk about before I let you go? We've been on over an hour, no commercial breaks.
I guess just mostly I'm grateful for everything and so grateful to be part of this sport and community. And I just feel like the amount of love and support that I've got was awesome. And I just hope that, I know there's a lot of people that were starting to lose faith in me, and I hope that this will give you guys just a little bit of patience with me. I'm still learning a lot, and I'm going to just know that I'm going out and giving it 110% every single time. And I'm going to keep doing my best.
Are you kind of committed to the opens? Like, I mean, what's your ratio? Is there going to be less kayaks, more boats, more kayaks, less boats? Is the opens thing an experience that you wanted to try? Like, do you have, like, I'm moving with my buddy Josh from Canada. It's his first year fishing the opens, and he's got like a 4-year plan. And he's like, I'm going to get my ass kicked for a long time until I start learning this. But I've set myself up. Like, do you have a timeline of, okay, that was fun, I fished the opens, or, hey, I'm in this thing as long as I want to?
I'm not a long-term planner. And I think that right now, I'm still balancing and balancing kayak tournaments and boat tournaments, which is not easy. My fiance, has been huge. I mean, and we have kayak tournaments back to boat tournaments. He'll go pick my boat up and bring it to me, or vice versa, and help me kind of travel. And he's been just the biggest support behind the scenes and helping me juggle both, because I have so much on my plate with that. And I did kind of start thinking, when you spend 2 weeks in a kayak, a lot of people don't understand the casting angles are very different. So if you're doing something and you're getting very comfortable and very fluid for 2 weeks, then you jump up to a higher platform. It takes me like a day and a half to get my casting, get everything kind of back and right and centered. Not to mention it's pulling me all different directions. So I have thought about that. And I'm like, man, I would probably be much better served if I just really jumped in and poured into the boat stuff. But Matt, like, my heart is in the kayak community. I'm a kayak angler. I mean, I love fishing kayak.
You don't get up on the front deck of your bass boat and you're like, oh my God, the freedom, the movement, the ability to like, are you as comfortable? This is what would drive me nuts. Are you as comfortable fishing in a kayak on the front deck as you are on the front deck of the boat?
My first boat tournament, I've never fallen in the water in any of my kayak tournaments in 11 years. My very first boat tournament, I fell in at Gunnersville off the deck of my boat, trying to pull my trolling motor up with wrapped in about 80 pounds of hydrilla. I fell in. I felt very uncomfortable in the front of the boat. I'm much better now. But no, I mean, and it's hard to understand. I mean, you guys not fishing in kayaks, there's just something different about it. It helps keep me grounded. And it's kind of my fun, just intimate, low to the water, just very simple, getting back to basics type of fishing that I just love. And the community is very special. And a lot of people talk about the kayak fishing community. It's special. They're a great group of people. And I love going and spending time there. But I do think, especially after this, when you get that taste, you want it again. And I want it again. I'm going to be selfish there. I want a top 10. I mean, I want to experience that because it was just electric. I mean, everything was electric. And I knew
there was no cameras at this tournament. So maybe you'll wait for the top 10 to where you'll actually get a camera in the boat then.
See, that did cross my mind. I was like, it just wasn't meant to be this time. I don't think I know it's going to happen again. I just do. I can't explain it. I just know it's going to happen. It might be a while, but I think it's going to happen again if I stick with it. That will probably force me to balance my time a little better and just continue to spend more time in the boat. And I'm going to be honest, I probably should fish some smaller boat tournaments. Jumping right into the opens for my first year was a lot, but that's kind of the person that I am, is I like to jump in, off the deep end, and just kind of go big with everything. That's been the theme of my life. So I don't know. Part of me is thinking about jumping in some smaller boat tournaments. I'm not going to lie. The NPFL has always been something that's been on the back of my mind. And I feel like I would really enjoy fishing over there too. So we'll see. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet.
All right. Well, I appreciate the time. Thank you very much. And congratulations on making some money in the Bassmaster Opens. I mean, you're up. Finally. You're up halfway through the year. That's the toughest thing to do.
Yeah, no, that felt good. My first check in the Opens, it was a good one. That's amazing for me. And just do me a favor and just give your wife a big hug from me, because again, her taking the time to tell me that about how special that was, that was really neat. It's cool coming from the guys, but when you hear it from the gals, Yeah.
Yeah.
So let her know that.
No, I will. That was nice. I said, I'll get her on. Like I said, the big thing we've always been on BTL, and this goes back to the Jeffries days, back with the grizzled old veteran Jeffries. He's like, you make BTL on the merit of your accomplishments. I've always just kind of done it.
Well, and that I think that's a testament to having a great show and having a very good caliber of guests. And I'm just really honored to make my first appearance. Maybe one day I can do it again with a better accomplishment. We'll see.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, thank you very much. Enjoy your time. And you said you're in New Mexico now?
Yeah, en route to Colorado. G and I, we love doing these little adventures together. We're gonna go chase some turkeys around in the mountains. See if we can't bring the two of them home. So little vacation, little hunting trip for us. So.
All right, fantastic. Good luck on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys, and thank everybody in the comments. Appreciate y'all.
All right, see you. There you go. Kristine Fischer, 11th place, Bassmaster Open. We're going to take a break, and then I'm going to break down what we have coming up this week because I'm headed to Minnesota on Thursday, but we do have a lot of special shows this week. I'm going to make up for not doing shows last week by doing like 8 or 9 this week. So take a quick break, pay some bills. We'll be right back to wrap things up. BTL on a Monday. We'll be back after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Before there were hashtags, there were handshakes and shared stories. They gave us confidence to make our first cast and chase our dreams. They taught us to fish, and in the process, taught us about life. They taught us that success isn't just about reaching the top. It's about lifting others up. The future isn't just about selling tackle. It's about 3 simple words. Let's go fishing. Here's to the original influencers.
When I'm in a tournament, conditions are constantly changing and every second matters. With the Deep Dive app, I can instantly pull up all the current lake conditions all in one spot. So no more looking at weird government websites. In just one quick glance, I have water clarity, water level, wave forecast. It's all right there in the Deep Dive app. Download the Deep Dive app and get all the tools you need to put together an awesome tournament.
I fish in some of the worst elements across the country. Spring, that's a giant, dude. Summer, oh my gosh. Hi, look at that thing. Winter, it's so cold. And fall, got a big one, that's awesome.
Being comfortable and staying dry is the only option.
AFCO, any fish, any water.
Pro Bass Adventures is reinventing Mexico bass fishing. With boats equipped with 12-inch Garmin units and LiveScope Plus, free loaner fishing rods, and no-cost airport transportation, Pro Bass Adventures is proudly putting you in the best position for success. Pro Bass Adventures has lodges on Lake Baccarac and Lake El Salto, Mexico's 2 best trophy largemouth bass lakes. Visit probassadventures.com or email probassadventures@gmail.com. The official Mexico fishing lodge of Bass Talk Live. All right, welcome back. BTL on a Monday, wrapping things up. Recording with Tom Brubaker later for the Fishing Chaos BTL, and then also some really cool stuff from Strike King, the Road to the Opens tournaments. There's, I think, an April and a May tournament going on. We'll really dive into that. Wyatt Burkhalter won on Grand 68-11, and I get a text on Saturday night from Bassmaster Classic champion Justin Hamner. And he said, I don't know if you want to talk to him or not, but here's his number if you do. He's been my tournament partner back home for years and one of my closest friends. He might be the most unique person I've ever met and super smart. Don't let the accent fool you. And I gave him a call and was going to book him for Tuesday on BTO. And this was Saturday night. And he's like, yeah, I'll be practicing on Norman, but I'll make sure I can jump on Tuesday. And I was like, I've had Scope Go did it, a couple other guys, but I hate messing with guys during practice to do interviews. It just, as a guy who fishes, I don't want to get in anybody's way. And before he hangs up, he's like, hey, do you know of any tournaments tomorrow on Grand, which would have been Sunday? And I was like, yeah, there's an AI team series, Anglers in Action, that's going on Grand. And he's like, do you think I can get into it? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. So I look it up and he goes, do you want to fish it with me? And I had never talked to, I talked to Wyatt a little bit before. We both made a top 10 at Neely Henry like 3 years ago, which was wild because he's like, oh yeah, you were throwing a 0.5 on riprap down lake when the current was flowing. And I was like, how do you remember that type of stuff? But I was like at home 2.5 hours from the lake, 10 o'clock at night on Saturday night. And I looked at my wife and I said, I got to do this. So we got the Osmo Action 5s. We got the microphones hooked up. I got up at 1:30 in the morning. We entered the damn tournament and I hopped in the back of his Falcon, which by the way, that dude fishes out of that boat. I think he went through like 3 trolling motor props during the tournament because I was first out of the money, 46 out of 200. He won by like 11 pounds, by a lot. And you do not get that opportunity to be on a lake, knowing how it's fishing, knowing what's going down, trying your best. And then the very next day, getting to spend time with that guy. And this dude's a character, man. He's a good dude. For what I had a great time with him. It was like we'd known each other for a long time. He's like 29 years old. He goes through the whole process. He goes through his background, his how he met Justin Hamner, how they fish together, what his goals are, what his plans are. The guys, like each one of the divisions, there's a tournament that doesn't have live cameras. So no one really got to, in my opinion, he didn't really get his due justice. He didn't get and he was catching him a badass way on a big blade, a big Colorado spinnerbait in 6 inches of water. And so I got in the boat with him. We didn't win. I think they got up on beds. There's like a 27-pound bag that was weighed in. A 7-pounder is impressive. A couple 25-pound bags, but we had a good sack. We caught a bunch of fish, and I recorded it and did a Randy Blockett on the water style interview with him while we fished in the tournament. We caught so many fish, and I learned so much from it. So that will be coming out later this week, along with my video from Grand Lake. You get to see the epic meltdown. You get to see the comeback on day 2, the whole 9 yards. Also, Tom Brubaker from Fishing Chaos on. I'm also going to have Justin Hamner hop on, recording a show with Frank Scalish tomorrow. A fairly big announcement, big interview. Paige Schumacher from Pro Guide talking about the Pro Guide St. Jude Classic that is on Table Rock here in a week and a half. Also recording that, fishing that with Mark Jeffries the week after the St. Jude up in Minnesota. So he's going to be on to talk about that. Fully rigged. I mean, when I say fully rigged Bass Cat giveaway for that, plus cash prizes. It'd be a great time if you're in that Ozark area. You can still sign up for that. So we'll have Paid on to talk more about that info. And then Scott Palmer from the Bass Tank will jump on in the last segment. He's got a really cool announcement that's really nice. I also want to he's not going to like that I'm going to do this, probably because he didn't do it for the publicity or anything, but I'm going to give a shout out to BTL legend Charlie Hartley. Charlie messaged me the night of the meeting at Grand where you have to check in. He said, hey, are you at check-in? And I said, I'll be there in 10 minutes. He said, I got something for you. I said, ooh, I can't wait. And he said, oh no, this is nothing exciting. I just want to make sure you have it. And, you know, for the last month and a half, raised a ton of money for St. Jude, for the Dick Hiley that's coming up this week in Minnesota and Wabasha, where we'll be doing live shows. And he just handed me a check that was made out to St. Jude and donated to St. Jude, which made my day. Charlie Hartley's a good dude. Appreciate it, Charlie Hartley. Thank you very much. You'll catch him. So, but yeah, we got Wyatt on the water. There you go. Wyatt Burke Halter on the water. It's wild. Like he literally like went into the tackle shop and bought all the spinner baits that they had there and like red kicker he knew was a thing in Oklahoma. Didn't have any red kicker, so he just dyed the tail of his grub red because he thought that's how they liked it. Didn't know really what he was on, had a few bites, and it just went down, and he developed it as it went on. There's some very interesting things. This dude straight out, it's not like he had a magic spot. It's not like he had a magic bait. He was fishing areas that a lot of other dudes were fishing with a bait that a lot of other dudes were fishing at the same time. A lot of other dudes are fishing, and he figured out a little nuance and was catching fish that other people were putting their bait 2 feet behind. He was putting the bait 6 inches in front of them. And it was one of those times that kind of clicked when I got to go out with them, where I was like, wow, it's amazing kind of the nuances. I also don't know exactly how to, the no scope, one scope, one without one. This was the no scope tournament. I don't know how much that played into this tournament. I know some in the Open, I know some of the places down lake stayed clean and some got muddy, but it was surprising to me how quickly I was able to transition back to the no forward facing sonar fishing. I caught some fish offshore, dragging some stuff. I caught some fish on points in practice, not really during the tournament though. But you put that little orange thing on and then you take a picture of it. And I kept the cover on my unit the whole time. And I would say it took me 2 hours to like revert back to 2020, 21. I don't know if I liked it, didn't. It was just, I thought that it would really kind of impact my decision making. I practiced without it beforehand going into Grand, but it was reverted back. It also helped that I caught most of my fish on a big spinnerbait in about 6 inches of muddy water, or about 2 feet of muddy water. Should have been fishing at 6 inches. I was fishing in 2 feet of muddy water. But big shout out to Kristine Fischer. Looking forward to seeing how that goes down. Can't thank her enough for jumping on BTL today, and for all you guys being patient and jumping back on as we're ready for another full week of shows with a lot more on the water stuff. I have to get busy editing. And I think that's all we got. I did get a text from Frank. We're recording Frank's show. Frank caught what looked like almost a 3-pound crappie and backed it up with like what looked like a 5-pound bass. He might have done the 5-pound bass, 3-pound crappie on the same day. So interested to see how that goes. Until then, thanks everybody for the support. Like, share, do whatever if you have a burning desire to do so. If not, just appreciate you guys listening and for all the comments and feedback. Same time, same place tomorrow. We'll be here. We'll talk to everybody then. See ya.